Oki, Naganago, Mekoche, Stokom Aki. My name is Red Thunder Woman. My married English name is Michelle Robinson, and I use she and her pronouns. Native Calgarian is being recorded on the lands of the Niitsitapi, which is the Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot south and the opposed U.S.-Canadian border are the Blackfeet. The north of the border are the Siksika, Gunai, and Bogani of the Confederacy. These lands are Treaty 7, signed September 22nd, 1877, with signatures that include the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Wesley, Chiniki, and Bearspaw nations of the Stoney, and the Dene from Tsuut'ina. I acknowledge all First Nation, Métis, Inuit status and non-status across Turtle Island as the keepers of these lands. All non-Indigenous are treaty partners with the government signing on your behalf. I honor the Blackfoot as the elders and members have been so kind to me on my Red Road journey. Elder Red Crane taught me how to pronounce my spirit name. I was born in Calgary, or in Blackfoot, Mokinstis, as Michelle Elliott, another English name which has afforded me privilege in an English colonial world. My mother is Northern Slavey Dene or Satu Dene, but my Indian Act and Post status card by the Canadian government says Yellowknives Dene. My father is so Canadian, I'm a daughter of the Mayflower and a daughter of the American Revolution, while having an Indian Act and Post status card. My Dene lineage roots me in the land of the Hare people, also called the Great Bear Lake people in Treaty 11. When I say hare, I don't mean hare, I mean bunny rabbits. I'm a native to Turtle Island, and my Dene Nation is a visitor to this area of Klitcho Tune Intahe in Satu Dene, meaning many horse town, named after the Calgary Stampede. Land acknowledgements are critical for creating a safer space for Indigenous, as well as honoring the host as the guest and acknowledging your role as a treaty partner. My humblest apologies to the Blackfoot elders and language keepers as I try to learn proper pronunciation. Any mistakes or misinterpretations will be on me. I encourage questions so that misunderstandings can be cleared up as soon as possible. I do not speak on behalf of all Indigenous. I just share what I know as I walk down my red road. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. We just had a major catastrophe happen in our life. So when I say I thank you, I mean it from the bottom of our heart. Maybe I'll get a little more into it here in a moment. But if you value listening or watching and you can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments or your questions. Also, giving a review helps on whatever medium you're listening from. I have a YouTube channel. You can go and subscribe, or you can go to nativecalgarian.com for the latest podcasts and pin posts on social media. And I can't emphasize enough how you sharing my Patreon account, my Gmail, these are the things that help me with donations. And I say it and I tell people, give me a review, but I don't know if they understand the gravity of how much that helps. So, if you are still sending me private messages on how to help, that you're not hearing me. I'm telling you, I have a Patreon, I have an email, I'm asking you to give me a review. These are the ways that you can help me, so please do. And for those who did, from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of my family's heart, we thank you, because we're 5 weeks in and we're still not getting EI from the government. They're processing it. So we are days before Christmas, and that's the government for you. Myself, I'm lucky enough to have a guest. Please feel free to introduce yourself in your way.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reio Lance. I use the pronouns he and they. I'm actually an Algonquin Indigenous from Ontario. I was born in Pembroke, Ontario. Ironically, the House of Commons does reside on my territory, ironically, since we were just talking about EI. I'm an MBA student currently working on business administration, and I hope to run as an independent candidate in the next provincial election. So thank you for having me today, Michelle.
Not just having you, you're a returning guest.
Yes, I'm a returning guest.
And you're right here in Calgary. So it's so great when other urban Indigenous can be on the podcast and talk, discuss the insanity of what has happened since May.
Exactly. I know. It's been several months since I've been on here, but yeah, lots has happened.
So much. So I guess May was when we decided we were going to Lethbridge for a new job opportunity that he started in May. And and started learning about landlords again and going through that entire process, and then getting, a quick goodbye and running back here. You know what? We were this close to houselessness. And I'll tell you, I have a friend right now that we're looking after their pupper.
Yeah.
This is a person that's working in the community, has done really great work with youth. And they actually prefer us use those pronouns. So I'll correct myself every time. They are, you know, they went to find a new landlord. The landlord gave them the thumbs up, and then they realized they were on EI, and the landlord said no. So they found out the day they were supposed to move in that they don't have a place to move in. So
Oh,
now they're
wow.
houseless. So now the very
Wow.
services that they would normally refer their clients to are the very services that they're utilizing. And I'm so angry because that very well could have been us. Actually, there's no reason. And ironically, after MMIW, after COVID, it's Christmas time. This is how people are still being treated, you know?
Yep.
And I don't have any respect for elected officials from the past and present, because
Yep.
this can't be happening,
No.
you know. And yet it's happening every day to our friends, our family, our coworkers, our colleagues. I just can't believe it that we're still here, that the 1920s rights that workers were fighting for then, well, we have to start fighting for them now, because it's so painfully clear that the UCP government, that the previous conservative government, which Kenny was a part of, like, and then the years of federal, both parties
Yep.
cutting and cutting and cutting, we're all broke.
Yep.
We're all broke.
Yep. Well, and for me personally, I think that honestly, this is the best way I can describe it. There's snakes on both sides, really. And I mean, I'm just baffled with, like, I know that the Canadian or Canada recovery benefit ended like back in October. I know that they just passed the lockdown benefit, but there's no word on how soon people can get that. Like, and then EI, there's lots of people who are not even getting their EI that they've applied for it, because it's always a waiting game for that. And I've been on EI myself 3 times, and I think the longest I waited was 12 weeks, which in my opinion is ludicrous when you have, mortgage
That's
or rent.
quarter. You and I know that's a fiscal quarter
Yeah.
that all of these rich people, they would literally cut 200 jobs over a quarter.
Yeah.
But we can't get EI?
No, exactly.
Like this is another conversation about Western alienation. We try to do our best. We work, we pay our taxes, we do the things we're meant to do.
Yeah.
And here we are needing the system, and we're 5 weeks, days before Christmas, and we can't get the money. So
No.
if it wasn't for, like, I cannot emphasize this to every single person who gave us a penny. If it wasn't for your donations, there is a high chance our home would be houseless.
Yep.
There's just no nice way to say it.
No.
And it's so much bigger than, I'm so angry at the world, at the system, but not obviously my donors, my listeners, not them. God knows, not them.
Not them, exactly.
And you yourself, like, you've been so busy. And one of the things I love about you being my urban Indigenous brother in politics, like, we're so stupidly busy, and yet here you are in the worst moments of my life, trying to send me private messages of, hey, I love you, thinking about you,
Yep.
and I can't tell you enough how much that means to me from the bottom of my heart. Like, I got lots of love from so many people with kind messages like that. I had people giving us lasagnas.
I know. I cannot believe the amount of kindness that there still is, because there's a lot of times I sort of feel I've lost faith in humanity. But when I see everything that has happened with you and all this kindness you've gotten, it fills my heart, because there's still good people out there. It's good to know that they exist.
Yeah, they're not elected officials, but
No.
They're not our elected officials, but no, honestly, but it is more than that. Like, it's not just my situation or my friends. It's that I'm taking the C train every day, and despite all of these bloody freaking promises from the previous municipal government, and, oh my God, we did so much for transit, I'm still commuting an hour and a half from an established community to downtown Calgary
Yep.
and back. Like, that's still the freaking reality. At least now I have a seat, which is nice. But holy Hannah, like, this is the first time I've had a seat riding public transit. Like,
well, it's funny you bring this up because our past mayor, and I don't mean to say anything negative, but our past mayor, he really tried to make, in a lot of ways, I found he tried to make Calgary like New York, which I find ironic because New York transit, it goes 24/7 and there's no 26-minute wait for your next train. So, I mean, like, I think, like, it's ironic. We're the largest city in Alberta, and yet people are still waiting or taking an hour, 2 hours just to get to work.
yeah,
From main
totally.
communities. This isn't from, like, a community that might not have transit. It's even the main communities.
Like the ones that we have both a Catholic school and an elementary, like, so I mean, that is not the reality across the city in any capacity.
Yep.
Holy, anyway, so much to kind of unpack and talk about. And now you and I are dealing with this new variant. And,
Yes.
and I'm so pissed off because Jason Kenney outright said, he goes, so my Christmas plans, under the current rules can't happen. So I'm just going to change the plans so they can. Who cares about, he didn't say this, but like, I'm sarcastic, of course. I'm like, who cares about a new variant? Who cares about our overstretched healthcare system? Who cares? We're just going to change the rules.
Yeah.
Like, other places in the world are like, holy cow, we got to do a full lockdown. And he's like, I'm Catholic. The rules don't apply to me and my family. So I'll just change it for Christmas. And then, I don't know, maybe on January 3rd, we'll just change them back to a worse. And I'm like, oh my God, you're going to love this. So my new job, they, this, Joe Rogan type guy comes in. No, I don't need to wear a mask. So literally our job to verify people's paperwork. And he gave us a fake exemption. Somebody slapped on like a government of Canada and a government of Alberta. And I'm like, oh, look at this, not a physician's letter that's signed with all your reasons and your time limit until you have to get your vaccine. But yeah, no, please go off how this is like totally legit. I just, oh my God. And the worst part is he thinks Jason Kenney is like a goddamn liberal who's taken away his goddamn freedoms, like every other stupid fucking redneck in this goddamn province.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you're an idiot. And of course they will never get the stupid variant. It'll be us working almost minimum wage front line. We're the ones who are getting it. And then they'll blame us. Well, you shouldn't be goddamn poor. You should be an elected official. Wow.
Well, and on the topic of that, the other thing I'm upset about is the COVID test kits that they've put out, and how I've actually seen people personally I know like get 10 of those kits, and they're only like a couple, so there's only 2 people and they're getting 10 of those kits. So, and then there's me, I still have yet to get a kit. So I just, this government just is failing and failing and failing, and it's getting exhausting.
Oh, I'm way past that. I'm like, I'm barely living. It's unbelievable. It's only been 2 weeks of full-time work again, but man, it's so exhausting. And I'm supposed to be getting one of those sleep apnea machines, and like I tell you, the week that I got to use that, I slept so well. I felt like I was going to like get healthy again. Maybe it'll even reduce my heart meds. And Indiana Affairs approved it, but until they get paid, I'm not getting that machine. We're gonna have this conversation in fucking 6 months, I think.
Oh, I believe it.
That money's not coming through. No way. But Jordan's principal and MMIW inquiry, and we really care. Our most important relationship is reconciliation.
No.
As to the Wet'suwet'en at the barrel of the RCMP's gun. And everyone knows it. Like, they don't have the resources for the infrastructure that was eliminated from all of the flooding that they had, from the downpour, from the fires, but they got resources and money to be able to point guns at natives.
Yep.
And unarmed, peaceful natives.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Genocide 101 in our
Right?
country.
Oh, did you love that report that came out that said despite being less than 5% of the population, Indigenous women are 50% of the prison system?
Oh, wow.
After the inquiry report, after all of these recommendations from the, Royal Commission on Aboriginal People in 96, the 2015 TRC Justice Calls to Action, we have the inquiry report that's been out since 2017 with 231 calls to justice.
Need you go on, right?
Need I go on with multiple reports from every province that has talked about these issues? Like, fuck off.
I know.
Fuck off.
I agree completely.
Literally, the person I'm talking about is a Indigenous femme, whose dog is like, staying with us at night until they can figure out the situation. Like this situation, I swear to God, and the worst part is this is white people. Oh my God, you guys are so resilient. No, quit saying that. Yep. You are putting us in a situation of extreme dependency and survival. We barely are making ends meet. A lot of our folks are not. I want to recognize that. And that was the other point I was going to try to make about the public transit. I see cops. I seen them at Franklin. This one cop, this District 4 cop's like, "You're not even looking me in the eye. You're not even looking me in the eye." And he was being so overly aggressive to a very clearly like houseless Indigenous person who was so high they couldn't focus. I mean, yeah. Blackfoot culture, you're not actually supposed to look authority people in the eye anyway, but whatever. Obviously, they're the police who last week the chief said, "Don't call us racist." Obviously, their diversity training's fucking working.
Yeah.
That's sarcasm for anybody that doesn't understand what sarcasm is. Like, holy. So this is Calgary, days before Christmas, yep. In 2021. This is my reality. And at Marlborough, like they're just standing there all the time. So we have lots of houseless people in Marlborough Station. Oh, I believe it. And every morning they're there, and it's so awful because elected officials clearly never ride frickin' transit, because if they did, they'd have to see this.
Yep, exactly.
Oh,
yep.
God. Oh my God.
Well, and it's funny because I said this to my partner earlier today too. I said, if we had more candidates who actually experienced real things such as taking transit, and I take transit a lot, I mean, we would probably get more shit done. Mind my French, but like seriously, like I just think a lot of the people who get elected, it's just they're there for their 15 minutes of fame or whatever you want to call it, or they just want the attention. But this is beyond having the attention. Like, you're there for your constituents. You need to be fighting for them. You need to know what they're going through.
Oh my God, I've never actually. So that both my premier blocked me and my elected official for city council blocked me because I was critical about these issues. Yeah. So they both blocked me, and it's not like I'm mean, especially on Twitter.
I know.
Like I'll literally show them, "Oh, was this you that voted against the MMIW motion?" Block. Okay. Guess that's my answer.
Yeah.
I just
I know, I never even spoke to your ward member, and I'm blocked by him too. And I'm just like, this is the problem. We should be allowed to ask questions. Like, you're an elected official. That's what you're there for. We should be allowed to ask questions. Like you said, you're not bullying them. You're just saying, is this you?
Yeah. Right. Like, yeah, I don't know. So yeah, that's where we're at. And this is, it's so funny because like the new immigrant, the new Canadian who's like, "Oh my God, you saved my life. This is the best place on the planet." And it's like, yeah, for you. That was the other thing I've learned about, Service Alberta is all the different classifications of citizenship they have for people. So, if you're out of province, if you're out of country, if you're here on a work permit, if you're a student, if you're a temporary foreigners, there's a whole classification. There's one for healthcare for truckers compared to, truckers and NHL players are together, that you're allowed to be out of the province, whatever, 183 days of the year or something. And I'm like, this is insane.
Yeah.
So we got colonialism figured out to a T here in Alberta.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're a new immigrant thinking this is the best country, it's because your classification is different, I promise you, than two status natives. So
yeah. True. Truth bombs. Lots of truth bombs today.
Yeah, so I'm so grateful you're on, for no other reason for us to be sarcastic and laugh together at the insanity of what people think is the reality of Canada, because this is like incredible. I don't know, and even for me, like I'm just so shocked at the state of jobs. Like everyone I know is working close to minimum wage, even if they've had degrees, even if they have years of experience.
Yeah.
Because that's the state of the work force right now.
Yeah.
And it's insane that you have people like Jason Kenney being like, oh my God, I can't believe that there's a work shortage. It's like, okay, let's break this down, dude. Federally, you did everything you could to undo the unions up in Fort McMurray. Everything you could. Now we have like temporary foreigner workers and migrant workers doing the worst jobs, dying regularly, and everyone's like, so glad they're out of here. Oh, wow. Everyone's totally cool with status quo.
Yeah.
And, now we're in a situation where you do have really educated people who are without work, and the industry is going right on. So now I can pay people $40,000, but expect master's degrees and 5 years work experience. And they're getting it because we're all broke and need money.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Well, and that's my fear. Like as I said, I'm working on my master's. I'm scared of when I get into the workforce, having a master's degree and probably being paid something like $40,000 a year, because that's the mentality of what's going on right now. And people think, oh, this is good. This is a good thing because we're getting those workers. But, you have $100,000 in student loans making $40,000. Awesome.
You will never own a home. Now that I'm now in this situation where, thank God, our house did not sell, like it is incredible what people are charging for rent. And
I know.
God forbid, and if you're not from Alberta, you don't know this, but we have no protections if you have animals. So if you have a cat or if you have a dog that's actually like literally keeping you alive, because we have no mental health services. So like if you have a dog to keep you from committing suicide, it don't matter. Landlords do not want your dog. They do not want their cat. They are protected thanks to folks like Jason Kenney and my elected city councilor, being able to go, fuck these goddamn useless pieces of trash. We don't want them around here. So that's what's going on.
Yep. And then half of them are like landlords and have all this money and, get to continue to be rich and probably own yachts and God knows what else. Well,
and to give you credit to what you're saying, I had read that there's 1 in 3, 1 in 5 houses in Calgary that are completely empty because some rich foreign landlord who doesn't care about the situation or plight here would rather have that house empty than have somebody being paying $1,000 a month as opposed to $1,800. So they would rather eat the cost of it being empty than to not, have a reasonable rent. Yeah. So and ironically, it would be our, people outside of Alberta that's like $1,800 for rent. That's a steal. And it's like, is
it though? Maybe in Toronto, but not here.
Yeah, no. So anyway, it's so wild, the situation right now. Yeah, we didn't put up a Christmas tree this year for 2 reasons. One, we thought our situation was going to be completely different for Christmas this year. We thought we were going to be in Lethbridge in a new job, happy, house sold, and looking for a new place. That's not the situation. But the other part is I am kind of questioning my relationship with Christmas because I'm Indigenous and I'm just tired. So anyway, last night we had a fire. I think I'm going to do one every full moon and just invite any family that wants to come. So yourself, your partner would be welcome
Oh,
anytime.
awesome.
Yeah,
Awesome.
because it's a time to pray and give offerings, and for a lot of, especially different Indigenous cultures, there's a lot of things that you have to burn. I have a friend who she's so um, like critical about keeping every thread of hair, right? So she
Yeah.
has a bag and she puts it in her bag and she's cleaning her brush, and whenever she's vacuuming, she's putting that hair into this, and she burns it when she gets the
Awesome.
opportunity. So to me, I'm like, okay, so if our home is available once a month for a sacred fire, then maybe people will come. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's kind of
that's
what we did
awesome.
last night, and we did it when we first came back. We had a burning ceremony because the logo of the company that we had that was on like brown paper bags were like, yeah, we need to let go some of this anger.
Hmm.
So we tried to put it in the fire and pray, and
I love that for you. That's awesome. And I love
yeah,
that for anyone who goes. That's awesome.
right. So and you and your partner are welcome. So like whatever your
Absolutely.
traditions are, like you bring them here, and we have that sacred fire, and then yeah, and then we had lots of food for feast for anybody who was interested, but not that many people came, so I'm glad I didn't order the KFC bucket. I was gonna I love KFC.
I love the skin of of their chicken. I'm not gonna lie.
Oh my god, I think I better go after we're done here because I gotta get some small things, and I gotta go get myself some KFC.
Yes, exactly. There you go. Well, and even speaking of Christmas, I think for me too, I've been kind of, you know, I've been questioning it a lot about too, like not just like
Sure.
Christmas and all of the Catholic holidays. I've just been really questioning because, like you said, we're Indigenous, and it was never our culture. We never celebrated those holidays. And even actually at Thanksgiving, I had some people that were shocked. They're like, "Oh, really? Like Indigenous people never celebrated Thanksgiving?" And so it goes to show the amount of lack of knowledge that there is out there.
But to be like, I'm so frustrated with some people though, because like when I was back in Calgary and at Occupy, and I had met a lot of Occupy Calgary folks and such, and to this day, well, I still don't understand the difference between hereditary chiefs and band council, and I'm like, I don't know how to explain this to you anymore for you to comprehend it. Um, it's not just me. There's so many like news articles out there. There's books about it. Like I don't even know how we can have this conversation about Thanksgiving dinner and why it doesn't matter to us. In fact, worse, why like we have to acknowledge the slaughter of our people. Like
Hmm.
they just don't get it. They don't get
Yep.
the genocide. They don't get these reports. They're certainly not reading them. They're certainly not reading our articles,
Hope.
and yet they stand in solidarity with us, and it's like, you know nothing about us.
Yeah, or the
I
ones that they wear the orange shirt the one day of the year and they think that makes them an ally.
Right, and then they do the pearl clutching when they find out that there's graves. Like, it's literally in the most simple calls to action in the title. Like, you didn't even have to read all the volumes. All you had to
No.
do was read the calls to action, and you didn't, and then you have the audacity to say to me, oh my god, I can't believe this happened. Like, before all of my life fell apart, I was going to go into counseling because like I'm so angry at the world right now for their gaslighting us. It's
Yep.
like it wasn't bad enough all of our ancestors told them. It wasn't bad enough it was written about in 96 with RCAP. It was written in the TRC with the calls to
Yep.
action. It's still fucking news to them, and they have the audacity to say that to me. Fuck
I know.
you.
I know. I know. And honestly, I can relate, and I think and I think I honestly am not shocked that a lot of us feel that we need to go into counseling or get a therapist because it's exhausting. I mean, I think for me, I was probably a little bit naive for some stuff. I can say that, but I think ever since coming forward about wanting to run, it's so exhausting to have to remind people the amount of genocide that continues and continues, and then they come to you and they're like, oh, that exists. I never see that. Well, because you're white, you don't see it. The world is designed for you. That's what genocide is. It's designed for you to benefit, and the rest of us to die out. Basically, that's what it feels like.
Right. And then you have these like anti-maskers who are like, oh my God, I'm an exploited Jew. And it's so like upsetting because it's for you to try to take that struggle and somehow make it your own over health restrictions. Like, we aren't even mandating vaccines. We aren't going door to door and forcing people to get vaccinated.
Nope.
We're not even doing that.
No.
And yet they think they're exploited Jews that are being murdered. Like, I can't even, our population, our so-called neighbors are so stupid. I can't even deal with that. I don't even know how to, you can't
No.
converse
No.
with something that ridiculous.
No. Well, and I did a quick poll, I think last month, just to see the amount of people in my writing, how many people believe in the vaccine. And I found 1 in 4 people in my writing are either anti-vaxxers or they think COVID's not real. But then these are the same people that have Trump 2024 signs on their yard. And I'm like, Trump is not going to save you. Like, you don't live in the US, so I don't understand the love for Trump in this province. I really don't.
Well, you know what? I just had this conversation this morning with a friend, and they were saying they didn't understand why we have so much American influence. And I had read the CBC executive had wrote this book called like The Tower of Babel. And normally I have it out, but I don't have all my books out. Anyway, they talked about how we are the only country that has a foreign country's influence as our media. And as much as people freaking hated Sheila Copps for having Canadian content rules when she was Canadian heritage, I mean, at the end of the day, our I would say our generation and older still are 99% watching American content. So they're so highly influenced by the Fox Newses, et cetera, and it's so gross. I like it for them to honestly listen to them and not see the propaganda.
Yeah.
And yet then claim that they're persecuted Jews that, don't you see the propaganda? I'm like, oh my God, I don't know how to converse this stupid. I don't.
No, I understand. And it's funny you say that, because Alberta is like slowly turning into that two-party system, which is the US. And it's so scary because I don't want to see just two parties. I really don't. I want to see other people at the table talking.
Yeah, I know. I once upon a time when I was naive, I used to think that, having 3, 4 parties bring in good ideas from every side created the best policy. But now back to American influence. I don't know if you know this, but there was another book by Marcy McDonald, and it was like The Road to Armageddon or something about Armageddon. And she talked about the Republican camps that they have in the States, and how our the whole Harper conservative group, including Kenny, they all went down there, all their staffers, to get trained under their, insane belief systems. And Daniel Smith talked about going down there. And, as a libertarian, she was like, my body, my choice. And they were like, oh, no, 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 woman. And so she was like, fuck this shit. And she left. Yeah. And then, but for some reason, regular Canadians and our Indigenous population, I don't know why it's like a secret. It's published. It's in a book. And she was on record talking about it. So I don't understand why this is somehow secret. So like that American influence has been so strongly into our Canadian politic, and then the lobbyists that are like the gun lobbyists and the military industrial complex, they're the same lobbyists in both countries. So I just don't understand why our population has become so numb to the reality of how insane this country has become.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, and I mean, I just said it to somebody earlier today too. I said, we thrive, or we try to take this pride that Canada is better than the US, but they've had a Black leader for 8 years. How many years have we had a person of color for 8 years? You know what I mean? So I'm not trying to put US higher than us. I'm just saying that there's so many people out there that they always try to say, oh, we're better than the US, we're not racist, like especially when they say, oh, we're not as racist, and those people I just
right. Want to give them that throat hug.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, like, they're clearly blind if they say, oh, we're not as racist as the US. So
yeah, no, they are, because we literally can show our graves. In the US they have them too, and they're not talking about it, but it's not any better whatsoever. And ironically too, the urban design of both countries are based off the same thing. So you have on one side of the tracks Siksika, on the other side of the tracks Glishan, right? So you have your white community, your native community, and that's like everywhere. In like southeast or southwest Calgary, you have Sutina, and then you have the boundary, and then there's the white Calgarians, right? So, and that's like Stephen Harper's, Jason Kenney, who else has been, Ralph Klein, that whole area there, like that's where the heart of conservatism is.
Yeah.
So gross. You want to know something funny? We had a liberal Christmas party, and they had 10 questions of really stupid things like, what's the bridge to PEI? Confederation Bridge, right?
Yeah.
I actually got a question wrong because my brain went to Preston Manning instead of that stupid Stockwell Bay. So I almost got 10 out of 10.
Oh,
I can't believe I got those two names mixed up in my head for some reason. Dummy. Anyway, but and okay, so I totally dogged up the government for all the justifiable reasons.
Yeah.
But I keep thinking, if Trudeau wasn't in government at the time of the stupid COVID, imagine how much worse it would have been with a conservative government federally.
I'm glad you brought this up because we had talked about it last time. And honestly, I have to say, not that I'm saying I didn't agree with it before, but honestly, looking at these past couple of years, I am like super grateful that we've had Trudeau, because honestly, I don't know what position we'd be in right now if Aaron O'Toole or any of the conservatives were in power.
Oh, I think I have a headache coming in just imagining no vaccines being ordered, imagining no masks, imagining the airports wide open. I mean, they're critical of what Justin Trudeau did, but they would have been a million times worse.
Oh, absolutely.
A million times. And they never at any point in time like pushed for lockdowns. Like, and you've seen both Ford's conservative government and our conservative government like have the highest numbers for many times because of the oh no, we're going to protect people's freedoms by giving those of low income or autoimmune issues the highest chance of contracting COVID and being in the hospital. So, and that's sarcasm for folks like that's how they think, but it's insane. So I don't know how to put these dots closer together for all our conservative voters.
I think honestly, if the conservative governments were in control of this pandemic, we would have similar results that the US had when Trump was handling the pandemic. There would be several deaths percentage wise and everything. And they wouldn't care. They would just, like you said, go on about doing what they're doing. And but let's not give anybody free passes here. Let's go back to BC and let's talk about an NDP government with a liberal federal government with people who died in the heat wave. People who died because of COVID, people who died of the flooding, people who died of the fire. And what was their response? Fuck all. Like, these colonial governments are the worst. I know. Well, and then you think Lytton, BC reached almost 50 degrees Celsius in Canada and burnt down in 15, 20 minutes. Like,
right? Like, holy.
And no response. So yeah, it's not just, I don't want to.
Well, no, they gave a response. More RCMP so that we could rip down more forests so that we could put in that pipeline, motherfuckers. Oh.
that pipeline is so stressful for me, especially as someone who's so passionate about running. Like, I love these people who are NDP supporters. It's like Rachel Notley pushed for the pipeline too, so don't be giving them a free pass. Don't just say it's the UCP doing it.
Like, I keep bringing this up, and I can't believe she hasn't blocked me yet. But whenever they try to talk about that, so what year was it? So 2016, I think, was the year we were like, no more cops in Pride. And then maybe it was 2017 where she was, we had our main speaker, who's Blackfoot, comes from a long lineage of traditional keepers, and is Two-Spirit. And he did the most beautiful land acknowledgement talking about the land at Pride. And Rachel Notley came in and got the whole crowd going, build that pipe, build that pipe, build that pipe. So our organization put out a thing saying, fuck this, a lot nicer. Actually, it was the speaker. He put out a, land acknowledgements mean nothing to you, obviously, and why this was problematic. And we put together this beautiful piece. So I remind her regularly of that. And the NDP just, and the other problematic issue I see with them is that, so the Liberal Party, our federal and provincial constitutions are not linked. So we are completely separate. So that's why you see like a Liberal Party in BC act more conservative than conservative sometimes. Right? Because we're actually not all the same. And I mean, I would argue liberal values are really like capitalistic, conservative values in general anyway. But the new conservatives are like Republican weird, insane. We used to be very similar. Anyway, regardless, my point more is the Liberal Party, our constitutions aren't linked, but the NDPs are. So an NDP in BC, Alberta, Newfoundland, whether you're federal or provincial, you're the same. You're getting the same info. And that's totally by their constitution. So when you have someone like Jagmeet Singh saying anything about John Horgan, oh, right, he didn't. Right?
Exactly. Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
So, and you never see the federal NDP come down on your provincial NDP when they're clearly in the wrong, and they're doing the exact opposite talking points in Ottawa compared to whatever province we're talking about. Right? So like people say, well, I don't think that Rachel Notley and Jagmeet Singh like each other because they have a disagreement on pipelines. Not, what is the NDP's ethics here? Right?
Exactly. Well, and that's the thing. Like, I strive so hard to remind people that one party isn't going to save you over the other. And it's just amazing the comments that come in when you say something about Rachel Notley or NDP. And it's not like I'm trying to go out there and be some vindictive person about the NDP. I'm just pointing out the facts of what they're doing. And it's like they're brainwashed and they think that this is reality and that, oh, she's going to save us and everything's going to be amazing if she gets elected in 2023. But they only raised AISH by $97, let's not forget. And then they go and bitch to the UCP that, oh, the AISH can't live off $16.85. Well, why didn't you increase it higher when you were in power for 4 years?
Why didn't you invest in mental health? Like all of the things that, like I can't even reshare their talking points. Because they're so very right on it, it's almost never that they're right, because they had 4 years and they didn't do the very things that they're calling the UCP out on for. And interesting you should say that, because I was driving yesterday on 16th Avenue. There is a homeless man on about Edmonton Trail and 16th. He has crutches. He has crutches, and he has he's lost his leg from the knee down on one, so he has his pants folded up. Like, we have a man panhandling in ridiculous weather because AISH is so poor here. I have how many Indigenous Indian residential school survivors houseless at Marlborough C train station every morning. You have this. And they're like, oh no, we take care of our own, and the reason why you pay taxes to take care of everyone. And it's like, fuck you. I actually really resent this Jyoti Gonda. I really resent her putting money in towards talking about this Bill 21 in Quebec
Yep.
when she has not invested that at all into MMIW here at
Yep.
all.
Yep.
You know,
I agree.
so
I agree.
I get so frustrated. And then you're gonna love this. The CBEs, they put out a tweet yesterday patting themselves on the back. All the school trustees shared it because, you know, oh, they finally took down one of the Langevin signs. Oh, you know, those ones that we had to fight fucking tooth and nail for, and they didn't do a damn thing with until they were shamed into it by a national spotlight.
Yeah.
Not, and they'll never give us credit for it.
No.
No.
No. No. No. It's all them.
Yeah. So Monday, I guess the sandstone sign is coming down, and I have to work, so I can't see it. So I'm gonna go today, try to take a snap of the before, and then maybe next week, you know, get a picture of the after, because I ain't promoting that. I can't.
Yeah.
I can't even. And you know, we have one of our team that was like, "Oh, good job," and I kind of feel like sending them a message and being like, "So I'm taking this down because we haven't connected at all since the thing happened, but it is what it is." They gave them that a thank you, and all of the school trustees liked it because they think they're doing a good job of being good settlers and trying to be a good ally. And it's like, no, you're not. You suck.
Yeah.
You're the worst.
Yeah.
You're still not creating safe spaces for Indigenous. So no.
Yeah. Nope. Nope. Exactly.
So that, yeah, anyway, I can't believe you and I have been on the call already and talked about all these things. Is there anything you want to say today before we start wrapping up? Because just you and I could talk forever.
I know we could. I mean, I think we've covered a lot, you know. I think honestly, I just hope people listen, like you said at the beginning. I hope people donate too, because honestly, you have a good voice, and I wish there's more Indigenous people that get involved, but I understand why they don't, because settlers. But yeah,
so exhausting. They are. They're so exhausting. You know?
They are.
But it is what it is, and you know, I just really appreciate you, and I just want other Indigenous who might be listening to know, like, you might feel really alone, and you have every reason to feel alone, but we're here. We're all here. And I want to be here for everybody. You know, I get sad when I see lateral violence, or I'm on the receiving end of it, but man, I got your back. I try to share everybody's stuff who needs it, that's in this area on a regular, because, you know, like, if people can fundraise for me, hopefully they can get people, like, you know, like, this is the worst part. Sometimes you can try to give them money. You can try to give them money for rent down payment, but obviously the landlords are like, wow, if you don't have a full-time job and you're not making X amount of money, even though, like, look at the job market. I don't even know how any of us are surviving, frankly. So if you're alone, if you're feeling alone, know you're not alone. Know you're welcome in my house every full moon. You know, even with this Ambicon, Embercon, I can't remember the variant, the new COVID-19 variant. Like, whatever, we can wear masks, we can still have a fire, we can throw the things in the fire that we need to. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. And you know, I just want people to be safe and try to have a good holiday, despite all of the barriers telling us not to. Whether it's your belief system to continue to do Christmas, like, I can't shame you. I was raised 44 years to do Christmas.
We all were, you know? So
God. So anyway, no Christmas tree this year, no Christmas lights, and I don't know what our future looks like with Christmas, but I do know, you know, getting together and eating together and being together and laughing together and being sarcastic together, I'm all down for that. So reach out.
Me too.
Okay. Okay, I'm so glad I had you on. I miss you. And I know I want to wish you, not just you, every single Indigenous person trying so hard in this colonial institution of education, trying so hard to get the stupid degrees so that you can have these papers that people will still not like us for.
Yeah.
You know, I just want you all to know, I see you studying. I see you working hard. I see you, you know, being disengaged in some capacity in order to focus on your studies. And I'm so grateful that you are, because those are opportunities not all of us have been afforded. And I want you to be successful in what you're doing. And I want you to feel, I want you to remember how proud you all make us. So like, me as an auntie or cousin, I'm always proud of you, all trying to work within these stupid education systems that are racist barriers. They're meant to break our mental health down. So it's not you, it's the stupid system. And I don't want you to forget that. I want you to remember how much we appreciate you all. So, anyway, with that, I am proud that this podcast is giving solutions, cultural training, cultural first aid, and all of them to create a safer space for Indigenous people of color, those with disabilities, LGBTQ+ to speak. So if you don't know what cultural safety training is or cultural first aid, there's this computer that you have in your hand called an iPhone, and you can do something with this word called Google. And if you were to Google cultural safety training, cultural first aid, you'd find it. And one of my favorite ones that I've been saying in every podcast is this one from here to help.bc.ca by Cheryl Ward, Chelsea Branch, and Alicia Fridkin of What is Indigenous Cultural Safety and Why I Should Care About It. So, work like this, these are the cultural action tools that I've said to try to help you all understand what reconciliation work and settler understandings are. I'm just lucky enough to highlight them and repeat them here. Internalized racism or lateral violence is another form of violence that marginalized people are experiencing by racism imposed on these lands with like the Indian Act or really poor urban planning of separation and segregation. So many things to talk about there. Racialequitytools.org has a ton of resource files from what is internalized racism to more. And Donna Bevins wrote the one that I had said for since the start of this podcast. Do's and don'ts for bystander intervention by American Friends Service Committee. What to do when you see non-cop harassing a person of color. If you see or experience racism in Alberta, you can report it to actendracism.ca or text 587-507-3838, and it brings you to that website, actendracism.ca. Indigenous have been sharing about our traumas, about the issues, and reports, commissions, and public hearings, just so it can be regularly disregarded. No more. Honor our words, honor the treaties, listen to politicians and their policies and platforms. If they don't recognize marginalized in their budget with Gender Equity Plus, if they are cutting violence prevention programs and services, Indigenous education, uterus health choices, gay straight alliances, lack of human rights for migrants, immigrants, folks with disabilities, know that your vote to that party directly negatively impacts marginalized people. I'll say this, this government since 2015 has had Gender Equity Plus, and yet here we have a femme Indigenous person in a houseless situation with COVID-19.
Yep.
So even with having that, we're still not there. So we need folks to understand this is the bare minimum, and we're still not there. Demand that they implement the TRC's calls to action, the Truth and Reconciliation Commission calls to action, the recommendations of the Royal Commission on Aboriginal Peoples. Probably heard me refer to RCAP, that's what I'm talking about. Multiple reports on child welfare reform, violence prevention, and now 231 calls to justice from the National Inquiry on Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women, Girls, and Two-Spirit. Folks don't understand. All of these reports help not just Indigenous people, but all Canadians. Denying these reports is a form of abuse called gaslighting. Our people are experiencing extreme racism in the educational, justice, and health institutions, with multiple reports that say the same thing. Demand change from election platforms and politicians. They don't understand colonialism, racism, privilege, and sexism. They have zero business running. This should be understood by all parties, local politicians, community organizations, sports clubs. A great article I said out loud in episode 62 is Truth Before Truth, how non-Indigenous Canadians become allies. And I mean, if you were to Google how to be an ally to Indigenous people, now there are multiple articles, like you literally have no excuse. If you're experiencing emotional distress after anything you've heard today, what we talked about, want to talk, there's a First Nation and Inuit Hope for Wellness helpline at 1-855-242-3310. It is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. At their website, hopeforwellness.ca, you can also have a text option there. For more related to missing and murdered Indigenous women, there is a phone number, 844-413-6649. It's open 24/7, and for non-Indigenous, there are distress center lines in your area. Here in Calgary, we have a functioning 211, and that's for all of Alberta. Or you can call 833-456-4566. And I also want to point out the 60 Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta resource of #SurvivorDriven. It's www.ssisa.ca. If you see or experience racism in Alberta, you can report it again. Act to End Racism or text 587-507-3838. Also, the Trevor Project has tons of resources for LGBTQ2+, youth, peer support. Just go to their website and you'll hear a ton of lines there. Of course, in here we have, by the way, lifevoice.ca. That's the Trevor Project's, umbrella of LGBTQ2+ crisis supports. They don't include the two. Still a problem for me, because as much as I try to educate people about Two-Spirit, when I don't see them using the two, lack of Indigenous inclusion, lack of understanding treaty, lack of understanding settler colonialism, and definitely not honoring our Two-Spirit, who in my opinion are the most important. And I say that with the greatest of respect to my guests too. Lifevoice.ca, there's a trans lifeline there too. Violence is my everyday reality. Every Indigenous generation has faced it. That's why I started this podcast, to speak freely without interruption, without tone police, without leadership shaming, without gaslighting questions, as many people don't want to hear Indigenous opinion. Sure want to tell us their shitty opinion by people who don't know anything about colonialism or constant surveillance of our people, our protests, our vigils, and our rights. Microaggressions. People dealing with internalized racism. Then there are the gatekeepers out there. I've seen a great quote from an Indigenous artist who said, just because the institutions don't fund you and acknowledge your art doesn't make your art lesser. So, those institutions not funding your art, those are the gatekeepers that I'm aware of, I'm watching. So, people who survive off the status quo, people who are so in their trauma, that there's so much out there going on. I think we've discussed it a lot. This is why I started the podcast, because when I turn on the CBC, I sure don't hear what we're talking about. So
yeah, absolutely.
Right? Thank you to my ancestors, my granny, my mom, of what strength looks like through your example. I want to thank my dad for teaching me to be strong and blunt. My stepmom for teaching me what a proud culture is, her Austrian roots. And through her, I'm a second generation proud Calgarian. And I highly recommend that if you're non-native, never say you're a native Calgarian, ever. Anyway. Right? How many times have I looked someone in the eye and was like, I'm sorry, you called yourself a native? And then they're like, oh, yeah, but it means this. I'm like, I know what it means. Colonizer. Thank you to my husband Darcy for producing and editing the show. He's been my childhood friend, father of my child, support down my journey of the Red Road. He's witnessed decades of racism and sexism, and to our child, who we are blessed to learn from daily. We are so honored you chose us. You give me daily accountability to be a better and stronger person. I hope my daughter and my family will be proud in the future trying to discuss these issues. My Patreon account is Native Calgarian, where you can pledge and support. Thank you again to my previous donors for showing your support. If you value listening or watching and can afford to give, thank you. To those who cannot afford to give, I'd love to hear from you at nativeyyc@gmail.com, where you can send in your comments, questions, or give an e-transfer. I also have a YouTube channel where you can subscribe and you can go to nativecalgarian.com. If you're like, okay, I'm going to really learn this land acknowledgement stuff. I mean, I do a teaching. Unfortunately, now I have to work full time. So our time frame has become very limited about when I can teach you that now. But I will end with giving side eye to those Calgary rabbits. You're lucky I'm not tradish. And my beautiful cousin would respond, or you'd be in my dish. Thank you for listening.